This is Miracles Asia with Mark. Say hi, Mark.
Hi guys.
And Mike, one of their clients and success stories.
Greetings. Grateful to be here.
Yeah, you're on the internet, Mike.
Beautiful thing.
The internet is forever. So whatever you do, just know that it'll stay in my memory banks. All right, so Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself and your facility.
Okay, my name is Mark. I'm actually in recovery. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I've been sober for 30 years
Hell
now.
yeah.
I'm ac-
Wow.
I'm ac- yeah, a long while, a day at a time. And I actually got sober through the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am a hotelier by trade, so that's what brought me to Thailand and kept me here all these years. And I owned a lot of hotels, worked for a lot of different brands, and then sort of got sick of that. I've always been helping people with the same problems as me. There's nothing like one alcoholic or an addict speaking to another one. We can touch each other, quite powerfully, because there's nothing in between us. We can just speak to each other. We know what it is and we know what the solution is and we can help each other. So I've been doing that for a while, and then in 2016 I wanted to put my hotel knowledge with my recovery knowledge, and I opened Miracles Asia in Thailand. That was the start in 2016.
That's
Okay.
awesome. And yes,
Now,
we have a recovering alcoholic in chat as well with us, Saitama, a good friend of the channel and viewer. And yeah, he's been in recovery as well.
I do have a
Right.
question, by the way.
Yeah.
Why Thailand?
For me, because I was here, because the work was here, because there's so many. For me as a hotelier, there was so many opportunities here. Like, the tourism industry is just huge, and they were opening hotel after hotel after hotel. So like I was a GM of a big hotel by the time I was 35. Like that wouldn't happen in Europe or the
Yeah,
States.
yeah, yeah.
So that's what kept me here personally. There's also, the service connected part is there's also a lot, or there was a lot of joint stuff between the after the Vietnam War, the connection with the American military and the Thai military. They work a lot. Of course, you had the whole, conflict in Vietnam and the leftovers of that. So there's a lot of servicemen in Southeast Asia, whether it's Guam, Japan, Thailand. So there's a lot of service people here, a lot of VFWs here. You'll meet a lot of service-connected people in Southeast Asia.
Mike, tell us
I
about
wish I-
yourself. Mike, tell us about yourself,
Yeah.
bro.
Hey, name's Michael. I'm Michael O'Connor, and I'm an honorably discharged combat veteran of the 82nd Airborne Division, 3rd Infantry Division, and California National Guard. I've had deployments to Europe, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and I have a service-connected disability for post-traumatic stress disorder. A little over 2 years ago, was in an ICU in Thailand, and Mark got me help to come to Miracles Asia. I went, and it was fully covered by the Foreign Medical Program, which is an extension of the Veterans Administration. A lot of people out there in your community might not know this, but we do have benefits available to us overseas. And so I completed a 90-day residential treatment program on the beautiful island of Phuket, and it completely changed my life. And since then, so I have just over 2 years of continued sobriety and recovery, and I've
Congratulations.
dedicated my life. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I've dedicated my life to serving the veteran community, primarily here in Texas, and just recently helping to promote Miracles Asia's program.
Texas, we
me.
share a time zone.
Yeah.
Again, Central Time Zone is the only acceptable time zone. If you're on the Eastern Seaboard, get over here. We got beer and cheese and really good pizza, and I will fight anybody on that. I'm a really big fan of anybody who goes to my actual other channel. I work in Wisconsin. I'm from and work in Wisconsin, so I'm like always defending our food against naysayers.
We're on the North Coast.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Thank you. Midwest Pizza is unrivaled. Saitama knows where it's at. So let's get into it and ask really uncomfortable questions. You guys okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, Mike. What you said that you're in recovery. So, and I know it's a big thing with vets. It is huge with vets. Alcohol is a thing that it seems to really, really be prevalent in their lives. We've talked to a lot of different service people, and it seems that if you're bored and you don't know what to do, you drink.
You're not wrong on that. Actually, the the biggest drugs that go around through the military community is caffeine and alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I'll hit you with a couple statistics here.
yeah.
So, a lot of veterans know this, that the estimated 22 veterans die every day by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
But here's another whopping statistic. In just the past 5 years in America, more people have died from suicide, drug overdose, and alcohol-related deaths than all the wars in America's 250-year history. That's just in 5 years. That's basically like a 9/11 terrorist attacks every 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree with that.
We one of the things that got me into working with Stack Up was when because I got into working with it through another VTuber buddy of mine, Liz Justice, and when she told me the statistics of how many people, how many veterans die from suicide every day, my immediate response was, that's like a small bus full of people.
And sadly, it's more than 22 a day now.
Really?
We're way higher statistics.
And that resonated with me because, as chat knows, I have borderline personality disorder, and one of the running gags amongst us is we're just statistics waiting to happen if we don't get help. If for a lot of borderlines, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Our number just comes up, so I'm a huge advocate for, and the same for people with very severe post-traumatic stress disorder, that leads to ticket punching as well. And so I'm big on, if you can keep the statistics down, because I personally feel that nobody is born to be a statistic or deserves to be one. We're all valid. We're all worthy of love and care and help. And that's another reason why I love Stack Up so much, is that through camaraderie and community, they help lower that statistic. And from the evil creeping I have done on Miracles Asia for my own amusement, you guys really seem to latch on to that idea as well, of the help is what people need. And now, so I'm actually being having my own malady. What really got me is because when I was approaching from and I apologize, I was approaching from a area of skepticism, because that's kind of what I do with charities. My friend has been burned. I've seen other vet friends of mine be burned on charities. It's in any charity space, there's, people who are disingenuous. So I approached from, like, there's no way, right? Like, there's got to be a catch. There's got to be a gimmick. And then I saw your programs for mental health. And I'm seeing DBT, CBT, EMDR. These are all things I've done. EMDR, also colloquially known as brain spotting. I've done a little bit of that. as well. And that really hooked me. I'm like, okay, in order to do this, you need to have qualified people. And then in the information packet, it just shows your people. And I'm like, these are people who've got like 20, 30 years in these avenues. Like, these are not people you just picked up off the street and gave a hat to. Like, these are people who deeply connected in their field, it looks like. And I was thoroughly impressed. And the more I read, the more I dug, the more I delved, the more I'm like, this is not only on the level, but like aiming for the bleachers as far as the services provided. So
well, we're very lucky with the staff we have. But I tell you something else that's not mentioned there.
Please do.
Is the staff I get are all in, I think nearly all, not the psychiatrist, and not one or two like others, but most of them, I'd say 80 or 90% of the staff, the clinical staff, not the back of house staff, they're all in recovery. They are all addicts or alcoholics.
Okay.
They have all got 15, 20, 25 years up. So yes, they're mental health professionals, but they're mental health professionals in recovery. Now that makes a world of difference.
It really does. Their ability to communicate.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's one of the reasons why I almost got into psychology itself, was because it was like, oh, I kind of know how this goes. And it's always better to talk with someone who's been through your shoes and in the form of recovery.
Yeah, totally.
It's one of those that if someone's been in the trenches with you, one, you're more inclined to believe them. You know, there's a barrier that's removed from treatment. You know, in the I've been where you've been, it does get better. And to be able to see someone who is helping you say that, I think is a huge, not to mention you're offering opportunity, you know, and an ability for someone to see, you know, okay, this life can turn out like this as opposed to that. And I think that that's very, very cool. Like, I really like that idea. So where did you, when you set out to do this, right, and gather your clinicians, was that something that you were like, I want people who have been through the struggle and are in this field? Like, did you make a conscious choice for that?
I did. Because I was in hotel development, I looked at it as a project of development. And I went to the States and I looked at places in the States. I had a really good connect out of Hazel and Betty Ford, which is like the mothership, if you will, of rehabs. And they were really kind to me. And they suggested that I visit these certain places across the States. The CEO at that time was a guy called Mark Mishik. So I got a personal letter from him, or he emailed all these emails and said, this guy, Mark Heather's coming from Thailand. And can you please show him your operation and show him ideas that you may have? So like I was greeted by all of these rehabs, like with the red carpet. And I just saw some great places. And the one that I liked the most was called Retreat. It's in Minneapolis. It's run by the AA and NA. It's run by the recovering communities of the Twin Cities. So all the people there, they have professionals, but they're all volunteers from recovery. And I love the model of that place. I stayed there a couple of weeks. They have some big sponsors there. So it's so cheap and it's really good. It's about $5,000 a month, which is like so cheap. And it's really good. I was just so impressed, and I wanted to model Miracles Asia on what I saw there. The thing is, I couldn't replicate it fully because there's not such a big recovery community here. On the island, there's probably maybe 50, 60 recovering people, not enough to help run a whole rehab. But the concept I took from them, and the concept was that it was what's called 12-step based. I don't know whether you know what that is, but that's the 12 steps. It's the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So it's run on the principle of the Minnesota method, which is total abstinence. You can't drink, you can't use. We have given up the right to chemical peace of mind. It's total abstinence from any drug, and that's the model that it goes on. And the 12 steps is Alcoholics Anonymous is a program, or Narcotics Anonymous, or Cocaine Anonymous. There's lots of anonymous programs, but they are based around a 12-step philosophy, which is all about community and helping others, basically. And it's a spiritual path. It's not a religious, got nothing to do with religion. Religion is, for me, about somebody saying, okay, you can't eat on this date, you've got to dress on that, you've got to do this on this date. It's a set of rules by which to live your life. There's a religious program, a spiritual program, which is the Alcoholics Anonymous. Spiritual program is like about a deep dive into who you are, what you think, what I think about Mark, who am I, where am I going, what am I doing, why did I, go down this avenue of addiction, how do I get out, these types of questions. So you can be a total atheist, doesn't really matter, but that we call a 12-step program. And most of the rehabs in the States actually they have 12 steps in them, and that's the spirit that I hope to bring to Miracles Asia. Yes, we have detox, which is a medical thing. We have co-occurring disorders, which is a mental health thing, and then we have spiritual things. So there's different parts that go to it.
That is, when I saw that on the information packet, I was very surprised, because my mother is a nurse and works in Mama AI is a nurse, and she worked as a rehab nurse, and detox is a hell of a thing. She's seen people detox and has described it to me, and it sounds and apparently looks like hell. And you definitely need people who are prepared and capable of handling that kind of thing. And so when
it's actually, it's much easier. Detoxing is not an easy thing, right,
Yeah.
Mike? But it's much better to do it in a foreign country with it. You're in like a loving, kind, non-judgmental, luxury-ish environment.
That's true.
Than trying to do it at home with all
Yeah.
your triggers and all the family and everything going off around you, and your dealers down the road, or the pubs down the road, or whatever your thing is.
I would
It's there.
definitely.
It's much nicer to do it in a place like this. Everybody's the same. Everybody's understanding. Key, no judgment.
Yeah.
Nobody's judging you. I'm like, who am I or Michael to judge anybody after the shit that we've put others through, So it's that kind of environment. So it's easier to do it with us than, say, at home or a hospital in the States. We do actually, we do all our own detox except for alcohol. Alcohol, we send them to, there's a really great international hospital. It's more like a hotel than a hospital. And we get that done there, because alcohol detox is life-threatening.
It is.
You can actually go into alcoholic seizure and die. So if it's alcohol for us and it's too much, if I think it's dangerous, they detox in a hospital 3 to 5 days and then come back to us.
And that's the one I'm most familiar with, is alcohol detox.
Yeah, it's awful.
And that's what I learned most about was alcohol detoxing and the extreme danger therein.
Sure.
But you're right. If you've got to go through it, might as well go through it with a place with good food, I guess.
Yeah, well, it's more relaxed, and not just the actual detox, but the time after that, the time when they normally slip, the time when they normally go back. That's the time that they should be cocooned.
I also agree with doing it overseas in a much unfamiliar area, because you don't know the lay of the land, which means you're going to shelter yourself in that sense where you're at instead of trying to explore.
Yes.
For it's that innate fear that is both good and bad, because it makes it easier for you all to help
Oh yeah, we're going for a change of perception, right? And if you're doing that in a totally different place, but it is warm and loving, but totally different, you're out of your comfort zone. But you're in a place that's totally different, but it's loving and kind. It's it's easier. But Michael, you've been through some detox. He could tell you. What was it like, Michael? It was pretty
Yeah,
horrible. I remember.
take us through it.
It is. It is. And yeah, being in a holistic environment like that Miracles provides, it gave me time to get sober feet. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's actually a continual process. But for those initial few, weeks, months, where my body's going through changes. I mean, when I went in, I was overweight, I was out of shape, and I was using various pharmaceuticals, drugs, and alcohol, and so it allowed me to detox that. And the program they had there, it's wonderful. It's like I got to go to the gym 3 times a day or 3 times a week. Um, go for walks in the jungle, do yoga, meditation, and it's sort of like, and most military people can identify with this. It's our, pardon me, it's our the daily routines, the daily, waking up at the same time, eating healthy, and being in a small group, like you have here on your podcast. We have a group of people that have all been through a similar, have similar afflictions, and we get well together. And so having that therapeutic environment and just doing things routinely each and every day, it gave me this foundation so that when I got out, I could replicate those same things like I do now at home. And I've just, like Mark said, it's just a shift in my mindset, and it's a shift in the way that I do things on a daily basis, because I had gotten into some very bad habits and daily routines where I was living, and I just couldn't get out of it. I couldn't do it alone. And so, the greatest thing is asking for help. And
That's one of the hardest things to do.
It is incredibly
It is.
hard.
and surrendering, which is really difficult for veterans to do. But when I did surrender, there's a lot of paradoxes. Through surrender, I achieved victory. And I found that my greatest weakness is actually my greatest strength. And I'm actually proud to be an alcoholic and an addict, in recovery, because it's led me to this incredible life that I have today. So if it wasn't for that happening, I wouldn't have met my beautiful wife. I wouldn't be, a loving father to my stepsons. I wouldn't have the purpose and meaning in my life that I have today. So I'm actually quite grateful for that.
I'm gonna latch on to that, because as someone who is afflicted with borderline personality disorder, and that one sucks because that just doesn't go away. It's you learn to control yourself, and you learn to mitigate your symptoms. So there's less and less and less, and eventually, according to the DSM, you're in almost like a remission from what's going on. But it's something that I struggled with as well. So I identify, like, I hate that it happened to me, because for those of you who don't know, it happens to you. That sucks. Life happens, something goes catastrophically wrong in your brain, and that's it. You're stuck with this. It isn't you. You are not your affliction. You are not your maladies. Your maladies and afflictions are things that happen to you, but they do not define who you are as a person. And that took so much. And the idea of surrender is also one that I understand, because you have, in some way, you have to give up before you can get help. You have to, for me, I had to give up the idea that I could do this on my own. Very bad things had to happen to me for me to go, you know what? I'm just letting go of the wheel, and I'm going to trust the processes around me that I've chosen to engage in: therapy, my medications. And so there is, and I too am proud to have this. I have also stated before, as Johns has heard, I am a proud borderline. If not, it gives us big hearts. If not for this affliction, it also gave me an incredible ability for compassion and understanding and these things that I might not have if not what I have gone through. And so I identify so much with what you've said that, you know, there, like you said, through surrender, I achieve victory. For me, it's been through my pain, I can heal. And by going through this, I am in a place where I can help others who have suffered the same as I have. And one of the things I really like about Miracles Agent is that kind of idea. I have suffered, so I understand, and through my suffering, I am trying to put good into the world. And that really means a lot to me, people who pursue those kinds of ventures and try and, putting good out into the world is sorely needed.
To piggyback on that.
Yeah,
Another
please
thing
do.
I learned another thing I learned when I was at Miracles is that there's no cure for alcoholism, drug addiction, and trauma, but there is a solution. And so, like Mark had spoken about the 12 steps, and then what they provided me there was these tools that I can use on a daily basis so that I have a solution. And it's that solution, it's the spiritual program of action, and it's connecting with others and being part of a community. And these tools that I got at Miracles enabled me to be able to live life to my fullest. I'm 58 now. I came in at 56, and I can sincerely, humbly state that I've never felt better in my adult life, and great physical, mental, and emotional health right now. And so, while there might not be a cure for this thing that we all have, but there's definitely a solution for it.
I agree wholeheartedly with many maladies because it sticks with you. Once it's like a little gremlin-y friend who follows you around, and it's learning how to deal with it. So Saitama actually in chat had mentioned that they have a program at their. So we're going to dissect Mark through Mike. How fun. One, I have a question for you. I see that there's a lot of psychoeducation that is given as well. Did you did you utilize any of the psychoeducation? If so, did you do one of the programs like DBT or CBT or EMDR? And then the second question is, how hard was it with all the tours that you did to adjust back to civilian life?
Yeah, I'll start with the last question. It was very difficult for me to adjust to civilian life. We're in this sort of bubble, being in the military and the military lifestyle, and adapting to. It's sort of like, my analogy is like I played on this professional sports team, football, basketball, baseball, whatever sport, and I was achieving things at a very high level, and accommodations, and the esprit de corps and the camaraderie that went with it. And then when I got out, I felt like I was lacking that in my life, and the structure and the routine, and so that was difficult. The good news is, when I plugged into the veteran community here in America, I'm able to find that same glory, the honor, the glory of being a part of this community and serving other veterans that I got when I was on active duty. I did do EMDR and CBT and mindfulness and meditation and many other things. The most difficult one for me was the EMDR.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
I've done that. That's rough.
Yeah. And so, but that's part of the process. It is uncomfortable that I had to face some of my greatest fears, and it wasn't just about the military. We actually were starting with my childhood. So just deconstructing some of those things. And I'm very grateful for it. And I've actually continued that process post-treatment as well. And I'm continuing, to work with other healing modalities. So yeah, but the EMDR was great. And Mark, I remember the first session I had with John, I wanted to punch him out. I was just like, he was just pulling, and I thought, Yeah, at first I was skeptical. I'm like, here's this guy just moving his fingers back and forth, and I thought, what's this? You know, what the fuck? And uh, and then an hour later, I was ready to strangle him. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
I did my EMDR through the VA, thankfully through Video Connect. And yeah, I was just trying to follow this bubble, and just like while you're talking, and it's like I get why they did it, but it was annoying. But I understood why it was easier to do that disconnect. But I understand the frustration afterwards, because usually you're more angry at yourself than you were at your therapist.
I do EMDR, and then there's another, and I can't remember the acronym because, as Johns will tell you, I hate acronyms, even though my name is an acronym. Shut up, Johns. But the got to get him before he gets me. But there's another similar treatment that's coming out that also is very much strip mining the trauma, getting all the getting all of the pain and the anger and putting it at the surface so it can finally heal. But I'll tell you, my first session of EMDR, I wanted to snap that pointer in half. I was just, it brought up so much anger that I didn't know I had at things that had happened. And then, anger brings shame with it, and then you work through that. But the first one, I'm like, I'm not doing this again. And my therapist said, well, would you be willing to give it another shot? This will work. And I trust my therapist very much. So I did it, and it helped. But I'm right there with you. That first session, you're like, this is bullshit. I'm not doing this. So I'm gonna throw one to Mark. Mark, trust is very important when it comes to your therapist or your clinician and you. And sometimes you can go through 2 or 3 of them before you find that person that works. How does your organization develop that trust that it needs with the clientele, with the person that you're working with?
Well, we've got 4. I've got 4 online. I've got 4 therapists that are 5, if you include the clinical director. A therapist on site. I've also got other therapists that I use online if they're specialists for process addiction. Process addiction is like gambling, porn, sex, shopping. They are a process that people get rather than a substance. So if I get anything quite exotic, I can use specialist people online, because these days after COVID, people are far more willing to do therapy online than they would have been before COVID. So it's very specialized things. I can get specialized folks involved. But the connection between the client and the therapist is quite strong, because, as I alluded to before, they're all in recovery. So that bond is pretty much there, and I'm blessed to have really cool people working with me. So they make that bond pretty strong, and they've all got. I mean, the guy that John wasn't in recovery, was he? He wasn't, but he was a great therapist who'd worked a lot with veterans. So, he made that connection with Michael fairly quick. It comes pretty quickly with us.
So let's talk about vets. Let's do that for a moment. So it is a specialized field. You have to go out of your way in a lot of cases to be like, I'm going to work with the veteran community, because quite frankly, they are often forgotten or ignored, which is not fair. But what made you decide to work with vets, and is there a different approach you take with people who have served before, who might have, invisible wounds from service, or does your treatment kind of already work with those wounds as it is?
Well, I'm not a military person, but I'm an army brat. My father was in the army. He did 30-something years. So I grew up on army bases. So I'm totally in tune with sort of the positives and negatives that go with that. Being an Army brat, so I'm more open to help the military community because I grew up in it. But the reason that we started with Michael, who was the first guy, several since, was it about COVID time, and the VFW post in Chiang Mai and the American embassy contacted us to say they had a vet in Chiang Mai where Michael was at the time, and he was at hospital, and he was sort of detoxing, and they needed help, and they needed somebody who specialized in trauma and PTSD, and they couldn't find anybody. Could we help? I said, yeah, sure, bring him down. So they brought him down, and that's where we got into helping Michael. And I didn't know how we were going to get paid. The FMP, they then told us about the FMP is great, but you have to follow a certain billing, recording, you have to follow their rules. And about a year later, they pay you. It's a very long process.
Yeah.
But we do get paid and everything. But it does take time to. So now we're on the list, we're on the radar. We can work together. But working with vets specifically, number one, if they come to us, they have to be presenting with addiction as a primary, not PTSD as a primary. It must be addiction as a primary, and then we call it secondary is PTSD or whatever they may be presenting with.
They're usually using their addiction as a coping mechanism for
totally.
their post-traumatic stress.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you've got to remember, using an addiction is about changing how you feel.
Yeah.
That's it. We use because we need to change how we feel. I don't feel like this anymore. If it's bipolar, if it's borderline, or if it's PTSD, I don't like how I feel. I've got to change how I feel. What's the easiest way to change how you feel? Is drink, which is a massive in the military culture anyway. And drugs, which is just prolific everywhere. So you can just change how you feel like this, and then we say that the man takes a drink takes a drink, and then the drink takes the man. And you don't have to have an underlying problem for that to happen. But there is a lot of people that with mental health issues, is the proportion of people with addiction problems is much, 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 much higher. So anyway, Michael came, and the other military people we've had, about a dozen now maybe, they're great clients. They are they fit well into a routine establishment. They don't ask why when you tell them to do something. They turn up on time. They're polite. They're courteous. They help each other. They're really great until they're not. PTSD is very strange. It runs really deep, and they can be doing really fine until maybe 1 month, 2 months, and then suddenly they go left field, just because something's going down that they're not comfortable with. So it can be tricky because you think you're doing really well, and then suddenly you're not. It's that kind of
recovery is what is it? Recovery is a wave, not a line.
Surely,
is one that I was taught, and PTSD is a hell of a malady as well, because I've always described it as insidious. It doesn't always rear its head, and you'll be like you said, you'll be fine, nothing will be wrong, and then someone lights a firework in your backyard, and that's it. All bets are off now. Because we have members of our community who have problems with that, loud noises, fireworks, stressful
I have
situations.
that problem.
Johns doesn't do fireworks.
Well, with other clients presenting with other problems, you see when they start turning left. You can watch them sort of go. But I've noticed with PTSD, it's just like that. It's suddenly they were fine, and there seemed to be no outward signs of anything wrong, but then something goes wrong, and you can't see it. It's something like that I found difficult to judge, difficult to pinpoint, difficult, you know.
And there's
Michael, am I right?
Yeah, no, you're right, Mark. From my experience, everyone has trauma. And trauma is relative. You know, it doesn't have to be combat related. I mean, that's one facet. I mean, my trauma started in my childhood, so but you know, combat is definitely, and you know, military service can be very traumatic. Yeah, it could just be an activating event, you know, that could set it off, and so that's another, you know, great reason to be in a therapeutic environment for a period of time because I'm sort of you know, I'm doing baby steps at first, you know, and I'm learning that when something that activates me happens, I don't have to reach for a drink or a drug or something to soothe me, you know, and uh, I can reach out to the people in the community that I'm with and to the therapists and counselors, and so yep.
Yeah, no, I 100% get that. Because gaming used to be my addiction. When I got back from when I got back from Iraq, like I was showing signs of post-traumatic stress, like clear, visible signs. No one cared, which is one of the other huge problems in the military. No one cares that you have a problem. At least my unit was that way. And so I would just be sinking myself into games, over and over and over. And then now, you know, I play video games for a living. You know, I provide entertainment through gaming. It's no longer an addiction for me. It's more now a healthy coping mechanism. Like for 4th of July, they launch fireworks here. I'm playing Beat Saber in VR because it's a great physical exercise along with just hearing loud music to help drown out those explosions. But yeah, we definitely learn healthier coping mechanisms over than, you know, reaching for a drink, you know, reaching for Coke or whatever. I'm curious though, for how Miracle Asia works. How do you help teach healthier coping mechanisms?
Well, it's
or
it's a holistic program. So the first one the co-host mentioned was psychoeducation, right? So psychoeducation is a set of subjects that alcoholics and addicts normally have problems with. Stuff like anger management, relationships, boundaries, values. All of these. So these are certain subjects that are taught in a classroom setting with information you need to know, information you may think is like common sense, but maybe it isn't. And you know, because we have been isolating. Normally, alcoholics and addicts isolate from anybody else, go into themselves, go into their own little world, and their life skills, especially if they do for 2 or 3 years, just in a room, either playing a game or doing cocaine or drinking themselves into a stupor and doing nothing but that. You know, their skills about living life just go by the wayside. So they have to get into understanding about relationships, understanding about what their values are, how to do boundaries, how to do relationships, how to manage that. Most alcoholics and addicts are ragey. They're annoyed because life shouldn't be like this. I'm not happy because I'm not happy. And you'll notice, especially alcoholics, they're pretty ragey, and they'll go into explosive mode like that. It's because they're underlyingly not happy people, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we're teaching these things as a classroom delivery. These are the things that you should know, right?
Yeah.
So the first part is psychoeducation. The second part of our program is all about relapse prevention, because anybody can stay sober in a rehab.
Yep. That's
Anybody
true.
can stay sober in a rehab. It's about what happens when you go home. So we are onto them as soon as they arrive. If they want 2 or 3 months, what's it going to look like when you get out that gate? are you connecting to community? Are you connecting to your, what is your plan when you leave here to join like VFW, your local AA or NA, whatever group? Are you going to continue therapy? Are you seeking help? Because there are loads of services in the States for continued care. Are you connecting those? What's the plan, Stan? You're not just getting here, stopping drinking, and then you think it's all going to be cool, because it's not. It's a treatable disease, but it's got to be treated, and you've got to continue that. What we do quite well is we have an aftercare program for 2 months. So we're on them. We phone them every 2 weeks, and we expect them to come into our meetings. We have online meetings, and they can continue with our therapists when they go home. There has to be that community that they get with us. They've got to get that when they go home. And which is readily available with the anonymous programs, by the way. It's free. It's everywhere in the States. It's great. And they should be connecting into that. But so the second part is relapse prevention. And what's that look like? They've got to have a plan they're working to when they leave. The third part is the mental health. We have to, with veterans, it may be obvious that it's PTSD or whatever it is. What's the co-occurring disorder? We have to identify that, because if they've been using, you can't tell the woods from the trees. Is that psychotic episode because of drugs or because you've got something underlying? We have to figure out like what it is. And you can't really do that until they're totally detoxed. I mean, like really clean and sober, and then look how they present. And then you have to treat that. So that's the mental health part. The next part is the group work. We have what's called process groups. We have lots of different groups where they work together, including, we actually use Cocaine Anonymous meetings. We want to get them into fellowship. Fellowship's where it's at. And then the last one is sport. We go to we have yoga in the morning, beach walks. We have a small gym on site. We go to this amazing, massive gym that we go to. It's like a sports center. And we do that. And then Saturdays and Sundays, we go out, we do stuff on boats, because Monday to Friday, we're pretty full on, 6 a.m. till late at night, pretty full on. But the weekends is more relaxed, because it should be fun, We get sober to have fun, not be serious all the time. So so that we call that a holistic program. So it's coming from lots of different ways. So that, that's how we try to force feed them.
My question for you. When it comes to aftercare, do you look up like in their local areas, like, hey, there's this program, or do you're like, hey, there's these general programs, go see what's in your local area?
Well, a bit of both. I mean, when we're here, we'll try and get them to make the calls, to make the connections. Mike, how did it work for you?
So I was already living overseas for 19 years, and I was deathly afraid of coming back to the United States. I was living on the disability compensation, and but I needed to plug into the community, and so while I was there, I found several programs. One was in LA, and another one was in Texas, where I currently reside. And so, that's what I did. I plugged into a veteran support community called Warriors Heart. And then I'm still actively involved in many communities here in San Antonio. And it's very important. I'd like to also talk, there's one thing Mark was talking about with the groups, and there's something it seems so simple, but doing it for 90 days every day. When we first start our mornings out, we have a process group, and we sit down and we do this grounding exercise for just a couple of minutes, and where we do a body scan and we do a breathing exercise, and we just get in the present moment and we activate our senses. And I found that I still do it to this day. And I mean, there's times where like I'll be in the parking lot at Walmart, right? And it's a sunny day and everything's going great. And then I get hit with this wall of anxiety, it just hits me. And so having done that for 3 months and setting up that healthy habit, and carrying that with me when I got back here to the States, is something that I still employ every day. And it seems so simple, but it's one of those things that by doing it daily, with the group, it sort of instilled in me this discipline. And I realized that like I don't have to pop a pill or take a drink when I have an anxiety attack, or I have, you know, if depression, a wave of depression washes over me, I have a tool that I can use. And so, sometimes this phone can weigh 1,000 pounds. Even though I have a lot of people on speed dial that support me, I still get these moments where that phone seems to weigh 1,000 pounds when that anxiety hits me hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the
Preach.
best I learned at Miracles.
Yeah, I hear that. That is, even when your system is right there. As Johns knows, I've felt that weight and unfortunately buckled a few times. Um, I'm a big believer in support systems. You have to have one with some conditions. You've got to. It's one of those things you have to do. If you're gonna survive it, you got to build a little web for yourself. But let's dig into your brain a little bit, because that sounds like fun for me. When we talk about the issues that come with addiction, that come with stress, that come with these things, usually there is a that issue with boundaries that Mark had said. Boundaries are a huge thing. We violate them. We violate our own boundaries a lot of the times. We inadvertently violate other people's boundaries, and we let people violate our boundaries, which is also catastrophic and can lead to some truly unpleasant behavior. Did you find it difficult when you came out to establish healthy boundaries, to find those lines that you're like, okay, this is a healthy line. We don't cross this line. This is, where I am, and the rest of the world occurs outside of it. It does not come in here.
It was difficult for me integrating back into the communities I was in when I started for a couple months in Los Angeles and I came to Texas. I felt very much out of place. Initially, it felt a bit uncomfortable in my own skin. But again, that's what's great about being part of a community. And most communities have guidelines and they have boundaries that we adhere to, like in 12-step recovery. You know, um, so those are in place, but it just comes with practice. And I had a lot of confidence coming into it because once I had the drugs and alcohol out of my system for a period of time, and I had some tools that I could use that were serving me very well. And it's okay to make mistakes, and I still do. I still step on my foot and put my foot in my mouth, but it's a lot less now. And then I don't have to be so hard on myself about it. I can have some grace because we're all just having a human experience, right? But I was very dysregulated when I came in. I was just this ball, this tightly knit ball of of knots that you're talking about getting inside my brain.
Yeah.
That was a scary place for a long time, but it just comes with time, and giving myself a break, and the more that I take care of myself and I'm able to love myself, then that projects onto others. So that makes sense.
No, it 100% does. Especially when talking to other people who have issues, even if it's similar to yours, it's like, hey, I understand, especially because, Mark was talking about this earlier, coming from a place of understanding by going through that yourself, it's so much easier to talk about, like, I understand your struggles. I've been through your struggles. Some of the ways I recovered, I would never recommend people doing. But it's one of those, it's like, I get it.
Yeah. The boundary thing is always is something that I always, again, is with my particular malady. We borderlines are just absolute dog shit at boundaries. It's like we're so bad at them. We're bad at making them for ourselves. We're bad at making them for others. And when you let people, especially yourself, violate your own boundaries, you chip away, I think, at what makes you you. And the more of that you give away, the harder that is to get back. But that's, I guess, the challenge, isn't it? Reclaiming and recovering those pieces that you've unwillingly let go. And there's actually something when you were talking about giving yourself a break. Someone once told me the most important slack you will ever cut is the slack you give yourself.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, and I really am a big believer of give yourself a break. You know, you can't.
You know, I think when you're with a community of recovering people, whether it's in a rehab, whether it's in an AA meeting, whether it's in a halfway house, or the places Michael was talking about, you're in a community of people where you have to learn to live again, where you learn to have to behave in a way that's proper, polite, acceptable to the community, acceptable to others. And if you're in a kind, loving community, which certainly the anonymous programs are, and certainly if they're good halfway houses or like Warrior's Heart or good places, the community itself, you'll have somebody who's further down the tracks for you, just give you a nod and said, brother, maybe calm that down a bit. So you are with boundaries and just ordinary decent behavior, which we might have forgotten over the years,
A little bit, yeah.
is brought into line by kind and loving people giving the nod about certainly was for me, that this is the way that I had to, but this is ordinary proper behavior, and that's what you get from a community, I think.
That's
not just therapy, therapy, okay, mental health, but when it actually living and boundaries and politeness and moving the right way and learning how to behave properly, because honestly, if you've been in the depths of addiction, maybe on the street and isolating in a room for years, these are skills that you lose.
Oh, most assuredly.
When I got into the community, one of the greatest assets about being in a community was that I found people that I call my mentors, people that had more time in recovery than me. And in the 12-step rooms, we called them sponsors. And I found them in other communities that I was in that weren't 12-step related. But what I did was, you're in a room or in a community or where you're openly discussing things, you're listening to other people share. And I would listen and I would find somebody that resonated with me. And then I would ask that person, I'd say, hey, is it okay if I get your number? Can I give you a call? Many times we go out for coffee or meals after these meetings that we have in the veteran community. And so when I got these mentors, they sort of took me under their wing and they showed me, by their example, so that it allowed me to be able to integrate, in society more easily. And then these are people that I can call on when I'm having problems or I just need a buddy to talk to. And so having mentors and having these peers in the community are super important to me. I connect with them every day. I mean, it's a huge part of my life right now. So
I like that you really use community, that you're constantly talking about community. Because I believe, no addict, no person who, suffers from illness. I am a big believer in that you are not an island unto yourself, and that community and connection is one of the things that can help us break these addictive cycles, shore up the places where maybe our maladies take things away from us, and create a net that makes life worth living, I guess is the best. Because that's one of the things you have to figure out, I think, as an addict. What, especially in recovery, I have to get up tomorrow. Why am I going to do that? what is driving me to keep moving? Because another thing I heard was, if you don't like life, try missing a day. You end up missing all of them, and that really
Well,
resonated with me.
the biggest thing that we have, you'll notice about mental health. One of the definitions of mental health is their inability to help other people. Anybody who's suffering mental health, they find it difficult to help other people because they're in pain themselves.
Yeah.
Right? I've got my own shit going down. Thank you very much. You know, go away. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm just dealing with me at the minute. Right. And I think this is, one of the secrets of our 12-step recovery, and neatly goes to people in the services, because people in the services are of service themselves. They have a service mind. They're more about, it's not just about you, it's about the person to the left of you, the person to the right of you. It's that mindset. And so it's not a quantum leap for them, people in the services, to think about other people. And the biggest thing that we can do to get out of self is to help. What we're all doing here today is trying to help other people. If I'm an addict, and it doesn't matter if I'm 1 day or 2 days sober, and I'm trying to help somebody else, I'm not thinking about Mark. I have relief from Mark, because Mark is a really boring place, to be honest. If I'm out there helping somebody else, that there's power in that, because I have relief from myself and I help somebody else, and I'm moving away from the self-absorbed thing that I've become to somebody trying to help somebody else, and then that's the key. But I love the way it neatly fits with people in the services to be of service. It's not a leap of quantum leap. Do you know what I mean? There's some people who've never had that camaraderie, never had that feeling of something bigger than themselves, or to be part of something that you are in the services that Mike alluded to, that sort of camaraderie, that feeling is very powerful. And a lot of people have no clue about that, but people in the services do. So it's easier for them, I think, to connect into being of service to others. And that's our way out.
So let's pivot to something that's going to throw you. How do you feel about fishing? A member of our a member of our chat had asked another member how they feel about fishing. They find it therapeutic. So we're gonna use fishing to talk about hobbies. Do you help people find hobbies or things that can help bring them comfort that they can do in their aftercare? Is this, because I found hobbies are incredibly useful to recovery. Find something to do, damn it.
Absolutely. Do we? I think we encourage them to get into hobbies or get into anything that interests them. Because before there was not a lot of, they weren't really interested in much.
No.
Certainly hobbies is it's encouraged.
I could share something that, so when I got out of Miracles, I started
Take a
writing.
chug of water.
Yeah, I started writing, and I found that I had a voice, and I started to become very passionate about it. And through my recovery journey over the past year, I created a website called warriorspromise.org. And so there's other veterans that are on there. It's a blog where we do blog posts and we write about our recovery journeys. And so people can go on there and then they can see how other veterans have recovered, and they talk about their own stories of what they're going through in their life, good and bad. And so I quite enjoy writing, and I enjoy connecting with other writing communities, and in particular the veteran community, and connecting with them and getting them, encouraging them to go online and to write blog posts for our website. So I do like to fish as well, and my stepsons love to hunt, and I love to be out in nature. And it's really about being active and being engaged, and because before that I was isolating myself. So I didn't, having a purpose and having a mission, whatever that is, like you all have this in the gaming community, which is really awesome. So that when I wake up in the morning, I'm excited. I'm actually really excited when I wake up and can't wait to crack on for the next day. So, yeah.
Oh man, if only all of us could get to that place. I will admit I still have my own struggles with getting up and being like, let's go. But I've always it's something that my therapist actually has. If you get up and you're like, oh man, just remember, punch today in the face. Just go as hard as you can, and you'll make it. You know, that's one that I've learned. It's less fake it till you make it, and just go full bore, and you'll find something out there during the day to really get you jazzed that you woke up. Like I do this, and I deal with Johns, and those are things that keep me going. So
That's because I keep you on your toes.
you really, really do. So let's talk about aftercare again. You know, we're kind of going back to it again and again and again and again. Mike.
Well, I think you're right to bring it up because it's all in the aftercare. We'll get you sober. Mm-hmm. We will give you the tools. We really will. You're as prepared as one can be after 30, 60, 90 days to rejoin life. Great. But when you walk out those gates and the reality hits, it's like driving a car by yourself just after you've passed the test, and there's nobody sat there.
Yeah.
Right, that's it. And it's on. But the more that we are with them for the couple of months when they leave, the higher the success rate.
Yeah.
We have a more than 60% success rate. 60% sounds
That's impressive.
It's huge. It is absolutely huge. And that and I know that because I'm in touch with everybody. Our numbers are quite relatively small. Yeah. So I'm in touch with everybody and I follow them. So yeah, it's 60%, and that is not because of only the program, but as you correctly pointed out, it's the aftercare, it's the connection. It's the connection with them to make sure they're going to the meetings, they're following up with the therapist, they're doing the things they should do, they should be connecting because, they've got to be, they sort of have to be answerable to somebody other than themselves.
Yes, accountability is huge.
Yeah. So when we're onto them, they're going to, the relationships we form with them are very close. So when they know that, the rehab and their brothers and sisters are watching, wanting them to connect because they also connect back to us. Mm-hmm. We have morning meetings and evening meetings. And we want to see them there. The times can be a little different, but they can certainly come in the mornings from the States. And we want to see them. And there is a feeling that they are loved, and there's a feeling that they've got to be there for the other people that are there. This connection thing again, so that helps us be quite successful. Is the aftercare? It's important.
So Mike, have you tried to utilize or teach anybody or give back to your community some of the things that you learned in Miracles Asia? You're muted.
You're muted.
Everyone sit tight. We're having a little bit of a technical difficulty.
Mike, you're still muted, mate.
Yeah, your sound is... One moment? Okay.
1 second. No worries.
You take a moment. Quick. We'll ask Mark. Mark, what's your favorite color?
Blue, but it should be green, maybe.
Mine is maroon. Yeah, no kidding. Mine is maroon, not burgundy. Okay. Maroon. There's a difference there. All right, quick, John's tap dance. Ask Mark a question.
Actually, I did have a few questions for you, Mark.
Please.
So I've been taking a look at your information kit.
Right.
I was looking at your schedule, and I could see where you were talking about, like, you have a very, very full schedule.
Sure. They're going from actually they go from six if they do the beach walk and the yoga, they're going from 6 in the morning right the way through to late at night.
Yeah.
But they have about 3 or 4 hours off a day. I mean, it's not, otherwise it'd be really just too much. So I've got to plan it with that being, so they're not sat there bored, picking their nose, and they're also that they're engaged, but it's not too much. If it's too much, they're not going to retain stuff. So it's got to be something in between. So it's a long ass day, but they have 3 or 4 hours off because they also
Yeah.
have to do homework. They do journaling. They do life stories. They're doing stuff for their therapists as well. And it can be quite heavy, as you can imagine. Some of the stuff they've got to process can be very heavy.
Yeah.
Almost,
I definitely
so-
agree with leaving a little bit of time for self-reflection in that sense.
Sure, sure.
So they can process the day and be like, oh, okay. And so because that process gives them that chance to retain it better.
Well, that's why they only do 2 hours of therapy a week, because which could include EMDR, but if they're doing that session properly, like really properly, then that's more than enough. 2 hours is enough already, Shouldn't really be doing more.
Wait. Do we have
you again?
Michael yet?
Damn
Nope,
it.
you're still muted.
Is your mic plugged in? Okay, so it doesn't seem like it's through Discord. Technical difficulties. So, Mark, we refer to technical difficulties colloquially as scuff. And the running gag is, if there isn't a technical difficulty occurring, are you even streaming properly? Something will always happen to you. I was
Well,
like,
there's another one. It's called God's Law, right?
Yeah.
What will go wrong?
Yeah,
Can go wrong, will go.
Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Yeah, absolutely. When Mike gets back, we're gonna address an elephant in the room and talk a little bit about that. And anything. Okay, let's see. Are you back, bud? You're back, but you're still muted.
Try disconnecting and reconnecting.
Yeah, here, try
Michael.
disconnecting and then reconnecting. I'll miss him terribly. All right.
Am I
Hey, I heard you.
There
You
we
can turn your
go.
camera back
There's
on.
our guy.
okay? Just let me turn the camera on, and there we go.
Look at that
Hey, you're
beautiful
back.
guy. Okay, so Mike, we're gonna get to your thing. Mike, let's go back and talk again. The techniques, the things that Miracles Asia has taught you. Have you been able to implement them in your community? Do you implement them in your community?
So I got it. This is a great story.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I was starting over, literally, but coming back, all I had was a suitcase, no driver's license, no credit rating, and but with the heart, full of hope, and having the tools that I learned from Miracles, like I shared some of those with you about the grounding.
Yeah.
It's doing these things daily, having a simple daily program of action from when I wake up. And it all starts with being present and being in the present moment, being in the now. What I did was I started going in the community and volunteering. And that can be daunting, and
Yeah, that can be real scary.
yeah, being in a new community, new people. But I just rolled up my sleeves and just went for it. I was volunteering at a food bank. I was handing out meals to people. I volunteered for the local Bandera Bulldogs football team, working a chain gang. But it was through this volunteering and getting my feet wet locally. And then I got a car, I got a Jeep, and then I started driving into San Antonio. And my mentors were guiding me like, hey, there's this event going on. It was called the Texas Association of Addiction Professionals. And I went there to connect with people that are in recovery, that are in the community, and particularly with veterans. And at that time, I was living like this. I was this monk. I was a sober monk, very simple, austere lifestyle. and just doing a lot of volunteer work in the community. And at this, it's called TAP, Texas Association of Addiction Professionals, doing this volunteerism. And I met my wife there. And when I first met her, I mean, she's 6 feet tall, she's drop dead gorgeous, and she's been in recovery for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we met, and we just had a really great connection. And I asked her out for coffee in a few weeks, and we started connecting just by email, and then phone call, and then we had coffee. And we quickly discovered that we had the same principles, the same values, and some of the same dreams and aspirations. And I wasn't on any social media, I wasn't on Tinder, I wasn't looking to hook up. All I was, was doing was connecting and volunteering in the community. And so we just got married last year.
Hey, Mazel Tov!
But every good thing that's happened to me in my life in the last 2 years in recovery, everything that's happened, like being a stepfather, being a husband, write a book, people that count on me in the community, that's all been just for me going out and volunteering with no real ulterior motive other than just serving people and just rolling up my sleeves and not being afraid to, if I fall on my face or, if I look weird or strange, or maybe I say something that's, it doesn't matter because I'm just connecting with people. And yeah, so, it's a beautiful thing, this thing that Mark was talking about, service. It's service, and it's what you're doing in your community right now. It's all about service, and that is perfectly aligned with, with the warrior mindset. Like it's all about serving our family. It's about serving our communities. It's about serving our country. And so the tools I got at Miracles, the mindfulness, the EMDR, the CBT, and being in the small community that they have, and getting my feet wet with them first, because we interact every day. And we all come from different backgrounds, different nationalities, different religions, different mindsets. But having that experience in that community and then be able to take that to the outside on a larger scale, slowly, I have this amazing life today because of that. So I hope that answers your question. Does that make sense?
That is beautiful. That's got to make you feel like $1 million, Mark. Like,
oh yeah,
seeing these wonderful things and people taking the tools that you've given them and apply them, because it's really about applying tools. So it's never comfortable talking about money. So we're gonna do it. Okay, so I'm looking at your pricing guide, and this is current, right? Okay.
Yeah, should be current.
Okay. So a 30-day, and that's not doing. You have to provide your own airfare, obviously. That's about $20,000, give or take, like $19,500.
Yeah, it's 20,000 give or take.
It's 20,000 give or take.
Yeah, plus it's there's 2 months aftercare on top of that.
Which is awesome, by the way. It's not just okay, so not everybody can obviously swing that. So and it's interesting because there's a lot that's occurring there that I'm like, I can see the value and the tag attached to this, right? But and you are a very giving person. The more you talk, the more you're like, you just want to give the world a hug, and I can appreciate that. So how do people who might not have that much up front but want to be a part of the program, what do you do to help facilitate that, if you can do anything to help facilitate that?
Well, we can help them through the VA and the FMP.
And that's the big one we were going to talk about, primarily vets.
That's vets, yes. Also, you have to remember, because we're in Thailand, and because I don't know what your base salary for a maid there is an hour. We don't have these huge hourly rates.
Yeah.
Our treatment is much, much cheaper. For anything comparable to this in the States, for a program like us, with as much contact time with professional people, but all of this, the standard of the rooms, you'd be looking at 50, 60,
Oh, yeah,
$70,000.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely. What you're providing here, I can see the value whole hog as you've been,
yeah,
because
it's,
I've been in the
but,
background looking at some other programs as
oh,
well, and I'm like,
it,
God
it,
damn.
yeah, it's hugely
It's
different, right?
hugely different.
When I went to the States in 2016, the only one that I found that was heavily subsidized, that I'll give another plug to, was the Retreat in Minneapolis. Amazing place. But normally the base, and I mean base, where they've
Yeah.
got bunk beds,
Yeah.
always two in a room. Ours are single occupancy. They start at about $30,000, but it's mostly
Yes.
insurance in the States, mostly insurance.
Yeah.
So it starts there and goes on up. So this is quite a price.
This is a
difference.
big deal.
Yeah. Then the reason I can do that is because there's like 35 people. I think it's 35 to 40 people work in the rehab, but the salaries are nowhere near the costs that they would be in Europe or the States. Very.
Now, I also take it that you work with insurance companies and whatnot, if it's applicable.
We do, but it depends on your policy.
Yeah.
So if you have an international policy in the States, they'll accept it. But we are not CARF accredited. It's just not worth us doing it. So there are a lot of American insurance. If you just got American insurance in America, the first question they're going to go is your facility CARF accredited, which we're not. So we don't fall under general insurance. If you have a special policy, which is like, go around the world policy, people who work overseas, normally we're covered.
Okay.
But normally most of our clients are either paid for by the VA or private pay.
Okay. And that's what we'll mainly be discussing is the VA right now.
VA, that's right.
As we are a charity for vets, I want to get into the nitty gritty of that.
Michael will know more because he's been through this. My part is I know about the billing, I know about the reporting, I know they take ages to pay.
Yeah.
But about how to apply and who's eligible, I'll let Michael talk to that.
All right, Mike, hit it.
Right. So for veterans in particular, again, it's actually a quite simple process. You contact the Foreign Medical Program, and if anyone is interested in going into the Miracles program, they can contact Mark, and he has another rep. And I just recently started helping them as well, working with them. And so, I can, in 5 or 10 minutes, I can walk someone through registering with the Foreign Medical Program. That's the first step, and just doing a quick introduction call just to find out where you're at. If you are service connected for PTSD or for substance use or mental health. And then when we find that out, then we just do a quick registration with the Foreign Medical Program. And then once you're registered, then there's a series of other steps that go into place. But as far as my out-of-pocket costs at Miracles, it was very minimal. And I do believe, and as veterans, it's amazing today compared to when I received my disability rating for 100% 20 years ago, so just over 20 years ago. The VA's changed remarkably well, and there are, as there's thousands of these nonprofits that also help us. But I also believe that I need to have a little skin in the game. If everything's paid for by whatever parties and I have no investment in it, then it can detract from the value of my recovery. This is just my own personal belief, but my out-of-pocket costs are pretty minimal, and it's mostly just sundry items and airfare, which is very manageable. But there's always a solution. If someone truly wants to get help and they truly want to get treatment, then there's alternatives to that. So there's always help out there. But from my personal experience, my costs were very minimal, and it's wonderful that Mark has set up this program and is willing to get the compensation from the foreign medical program comes on the back end. So my out-of-pocket costs were minimal.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Um, I've never met a hotelier
I mean, it
before.
seems to me that this was set up. It was set up. The FMP was set up for servicemen, ex-servicemen, or current servicemen who are living or traveling abroad, that they're covered. They have insurance policy for mental and physical health,
Okay.
but they can also fly from the States to here and get therapy here if they're covered. If they're covered, they can
Yeah.
do that. I don't think that was the idea when they set it up, but because I think the idea when it's set up is our boys and girls living overseas, that they're covered was the idea.
Yeah.
But they could actually get on a plane from the States and just come, as long as they have the coverage.
Whatever works to where it's stuck up, and in my own life, as I'm filing for disability myself, I'm a big fan. If there's a program, use it. Don't ever not use something that can help you, because
Sure.
it's there to be used, and you deserve, no matter what you feel like inside, you deserve the ability to use something like a program that will help you. It's there, use it. Don't. Pride is a huge thing as well. And I think that's one of the biggest barriers to treatment sometimes, as an addict, as someone who has a malady, is letting go of that false sense of pride that's holding you back from achieving or asking for help or using these programs. How big of a issue was pride for you, Mike?
Well, it was really big at first. I that was the hardest thing, was asking for help. I was this bootstrapping, self-willed person, and not realizing that I was just slowly dying inside and killing myself. I wasn't taking care of myself. But having the disability rating 100% can be a double-edged sword, because yes, I get a check at the end of every month, and it's what I do with that money that that was killing me, and I couldn't get out of that cycle that I was in. And so, I mean, there's never been more support for the veteran community than there is today. I mean, if someone doesn't have the wherewithal to travel overseas, there's a wealth of services available, here in America. And I actually didn't know about a lot of that, because I was truly living off grid for many years. I mean, I was disconnected. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then at the same time, the biggest reason was pride. It was acceptance. I was so afraid that if you only knew who I was, if you only knew some of the things that I did, you wouldn't accept me. I wouldn't be accepted in the community. I would be judged, and that for me was my biggest hurdle. Was just what I realized is that when I raised my hand, I asked for help, I made some calls, I started plugging in, that people did it, not just accept me, they embraced me. They embraced me, and they showed me, because I had a willingness. But the first thing starts is that I have to be willing.
Yes.
And and I have to be willing to be uncomfortable. But it sure beats the uncomfortability that I was in, because I was truly uncomfortable, and it was that pain that I was in that forced me to ask for help. But it was that, not the fear was not being accepted in the community. And when I found that I was accepted, and that I was embraced, that's when the doors opened up, and I plugged in. So
Vulnerability is an absolute son of a bitch. That is, you have to be willing to be vulnerable to get help. Like you said, to raise your hand, to let go of pride, it leaves you in a vulnerable state. And that vulnerability is one of the first barriers I found that you have to tear down for proper treatment. But I can't imagine that you were taught in the military that being vulnerable was a good thing. Like, that seems kind of antithetical to what you would be taught, that, oh yeah, you can be vulnerable, you can be quote unquote soft. Like, no. harden up. John's, come
I
on,
mean,
John's. Come in.
column
here.
A, column B on that.
Okay.
Coming from the military police background, we were taught to not exploit people's vulnerabilities in order to, but I'm trying to think of a better word. To utilize them.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Because we both to gather information for the case, and two, to get the assistance that the victims needed. So we were taught about vulnerability, but not in a way that it's okay to be vulnerable.
Yes.
More of an okay to use it.
So we're gonna point the emotional gun at Mark and pull the trigger. Mark, pal, vulnerability is huge. It is a big thing. When you were, as you said, you were an addict yourself. How hard was it for you to let go of pride and be vulnerable, to open yourself up to the idea of wellness?
Well, for me, I think for service people, it's even because I grew up in that culture, so I know what it is. So for a civilian, it's a lot easier because I'm not cocooned in that world. And for me personally, when I came into recovery, I was starting to black out. I was getting into fights, and it was getting weird. So I ran to AA fellowship. Luckily, there was an AA meeting where I got sober. It was I got sober in a city called Patia, which is like Sodom and Gomorrah type place. It's just an awful place.
Oh, I know that place.
Yeah.
Oh, well, when you said it, I'm like, oh no, that's the Turi place.
Yeah, that's the really was. It came from the R&R in the Vietnam War.
That's the place where the nice ladies point pen lights at you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's where I got sober, believe it or not. And there happened to be an AA meeting, and it happened to be with these oil workers, because there was an oil refinery down the road from Caltex, and there was a bunch of dudes from Baton Rouge in Louisiana. And I ran into that meeting, and I was frightened, and I was broken. So it was relatively easy for me to go, hands up, boys, I need help. You know, I think it's for a serviceman stuck in their room with the money coming in, and pride and ego and no surrender is far more difficult for them than it was for me. Mine was, I'm going to die unless I do something really quickly. So it was the last door open, and then I took it. But what I see with the service guys, much more insidious, much more deep-grained, much more culturally very difficult for, Marines are not taught the word surrender. It's not in their vocabulary. And they do have to surrender. I mean, you have to surrender the ego, the pride, you have to get past yourself. Difficult thing for them to do. Absolutely necessary, or they won't move anywhere.
The adage of, you know what, I could do this if I would just get out of my own damn way.
Totally.
Is a big one. So Mark, you actually answered a uncomfortable question I was going to ask, what was your quote, come to Jesus moment when you realized, I have to get better. I don't have a choice in this.
We call it in our parlance. We call it the moment of clarity.
Oh, I like that. What was your moment of clarity?
The moment of clarity. It's like, what the fuck moment? That moment of sanity. That moment of, what are you doing? And my moment of clarity came from that I had been not drinking, and I was counting the days. I actually wrote it up somewhere, and I got this job in this hotel, pre-opening, really flash hotel, and I'd not been drinking for a month. It was in Patia, that's why I was there. And one morning I just drove to work and stopped at and they sell booze here everywhere. I just stopped and bought, a bottle of whiskey, and rented a room. I'm in a suit, on the way to work, and then I just started downing the whiskey, and then when I finished that, I thought, God, you're going to lose your job, you lose your work permit, be here in Pattaya, this shithole. And plus I was, I just knew it was a heavy place, not a place that you sort of should be upsetting the locals and being a dick.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just a heavy place, and I knew it wasn't good. And this was 1994, so before mobile phones, before the internet. Now, you just go online and you go recovery, and
It
a
pops
world
up.
is going to appear. Then not. And I found the ad with the payphone. I phoned the embassy, who said they'd visited Pattaya and seen an advert in the Pattaya Weekly, which is our local rag magazine. And so then they actually gave me the number of the Pattaya Mail, and I phoned them. Then I got a number, and they said, "Oh, well, let me go back," and they find the number and they give it to me, and then the guy goes, just get your ass to a meeting tonight, which I did, which started my recovery. So it's a moment of clarity, I think it's called. Moments of sanity.
Yeah.
Like, what
The
fuck are you
clouds
doing?
part for a moment.
Just for a moment, so you
Just
see
for a
yourself.
tiny bit, and you can reflect on that. All right, Mike.
What was your moment?
My
What was your
moment of
moment of
clarity?
clarity? Yeah.
My moment of clarity was I was somewhere very bad for 3 years. And while I was there, it hit me. Once this is done, I'm probably going to die.
Yeah.
That was my moment of clarity, realizing I got my diagnosis in there. I started to self-advocate for mental health. And because I realized I am on borrowed time, and it is running out fast. I had a girlfriend who was a borderline, and that's where I learned about the disorder. And when I found out that I had it, I'm like, oh shit. This explains why I do what I do. But also, this is a death sentence if I don't do something about it. We are way too high of a statistic. And sadly enough, I have an ex-girlfriend who last year was unmedicated, was untreated, and she did end up taking her life on Christmas. And, you look at that and you're like, that could have been me.
Totally.
I could have done that when I talked to my therapist. They're like, you were pricing out helium tanks. Do you like balloons? And I'm like, no, I don't like balloons. And she's like, I know what you were going to do. You know what you were going to do. This was not a suddenly unimportant decision. You just wanted to go painlessly. And, you're like, yeah, I trained myself to be adverse to pain because I was very physically abusive towards myself. So that was my moment of clarity, is getting the diagnosis, realizing, oh, I'm a dead man walking, essentially. I need to get things in order for when I come back from my vacation. And it's scary. That moment is terrifying, by the way. For any of you who've experienced it, it is a scary moment because the clouds part, you are clear for a moment and you get to see what you've been doing. And you either do something or the clouds come back in. You just get a brief flash. If you're lucky, it lasts a really long time. Mike, we're going to ask you the same awkward, painful question.
So I was broken. I was totally broken. And I was in an ICU in Phuket, and I had wires attached to my chest and tubes stuck in my body, and I was knocking on death's door. And something else I didn't tell y'all, I had been to 12 treatment centers prior to that over a 15-year period. I was in and out of treatment centers, in and out of recovery programs, and I couldn't get it. And I was just broken. I was shattered. And it was when I spoke to Mark, and I just like, Mark, what do I do? Like I keep coming back to rehabs. I keep bouncing in and out of treatment centers and, trying these things, a 12-step recovery program, but I wasn't really working it. And what do I do? And, Mark told me, he said, surrender, and it was at that moment when I made that decision to surrender, and I was willing to do whatever it took. Like if Mark said to me, light your ass on fire and wear a pink dress and run down the street,
You'd have done it?
I would
Yeah.
I would have done whatever. Like I just had to connect with people that had been doing this for a while and be willing to listen to what they had to tell me, what they told me to do, and not be, like Mark's analogy is I was driving the bus, it was this self-will run riot. It was my will. And when I finally surrendered and made that decision, that was the turning point.
Yeah, I can.
Now, there's another thing I'd like to add to that.
Yeah, please do.
So so I had suicidal ideation. I didn't want to make the ultimate sacrifice. Now, I had this belief system, and I still have that same belief system today,
Yep.
that if I would take my own life, I would end up somewhere worse than I am
yeah.
right now. That it wasn't like that I was afraid of dying. Actually, I had it all mapped out. It wasn't the actual process of dying. It was where I would end up after I died,
Yeah.
And so, what I found out when Mark plugged me in with the doctor that he had there with Harshal, he asked me, well, what meds are you taking? And I told him, and he said, well, and they checked it out. And the next day or two, he got back to me. He goes, well, do you know that one of the side effects of this antidepressant that you're on is suicidal ideation? And I had thought I was going through what's called PAWS, P-A-W-S, post-acute withdrawal syndrome, because I'd taken the alcohol and drugs out of my body, so I wanted to kill myself because I didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. And I realized later on when I plugged into the veteran community that I serve that most of us are on prescription medications. And I'm not here to say that's right or wrong, but I know a lot of guys that suffer and they don't have to suffer. And I think many of these people are suffering from the side effects of the meds that they're on. I know I was. I'll speak for myself.
Okay.
I was suffering from the side effects of this medication. In my mind, I thought the doctor prescribed it to me, so it's okay, and I just take it every day because I did that for 20 years. But once this, Mark's doctor was able to take that out of the equation and give me something else and it was a game changer. Like literally within a week's time, I no longer had suicidal ideation, and then I could sleeping again, and I was sleeping regularly, and so. That was a huge turning point in my life.
I too will, because I'm medicated as well. I have a mood stabilizer to help keep to give me the ability to pump the brakes when I feel something, as opposed to, as a borderline walking around as one exposed emotional nerve all the time. And one thing that I found is, and again, we're not here to say whether or not you should or should not take your medication. But the one thing that I am going to say, have a talk with your doctor. Make sure you know what you're taking and what it does. The side effects, the benefits, always make an informed decision. Because you have to know.
It's something that we see come up, outside of the veteran community as well, just with general clients coming in, that they are being prescribed all sorts of stuff, especially the benzo family, mother's little helpers, and they're just being prescribed by GPs, which is a general practitioner, not a psychiatrist. And often they're not correct.
You have to be
found.
Yeah.
And if people are using like drugs or alcohol to change how they feel because they're not feeling right, you better get the bloody drug right that you're helping people
you're working with.
get over that feeling. And it's common. It is common. I would say like 1 in 10 of the clients we have, which is like 10%, that we find that we don't necessarily, or our psychiatrist who specializes in addiction and mental health doesn't agree 100% with what was given by normally a GP. It's more common than you'd think.
Yeah, no, I've over here it's the same thing. Sometimes people can get a little trigger happy. Johns, I know we were all sharing. Did you?
Oh, you want to know?
Did
you want to know my?
Did you want to share your moment of clarity? You don't have to.
Oh no, I've always shared mine. No, if you want to hear it, I don't mind talking about it.
Your moment of clarity.
So my moment of clarity was actually back in 2016, 2017, where I've been learning to, where, I recently lost one of my kids, and was just on top of post-traumatic stress, more post-traumatic stress, just more and more and more. So I eventually decided to, take my own life. Through medication. This was like attempt number 10 or something like that. I have a long-standing history of suicidal attempts as a really bad coping mechanism. Really bad. Just because, and so with that, the final time, I took a bunch of meds, probably like 4 or 5 bottles worth. And after, being unconscious and then waking up in the hospital because my wife was the one who called 911, and they, had to charcoal my stomach and all that. After I woke up, I realized, I kind of got that out of my system. Which is why I never recommend anyone go down the road I did for my recovery, because it's not a healthy one.
No. It's not fun.
Yeah, my moment of clarity was just after waking up, realizing you know what, I'm good. I don't need to really do this anymore. Do I still have suicidal ideations and stuff like that? Yes, but they're more fleeting now than where I would really used to just dwell on them.
Yeah. I reached a milestone actually recently, Johns. I am 3 years ideation free. 3 or 4 years now ideation free. Yeah. That was a struggle. But yeah. I think it also comes from really learning to value yourself and learning that the damage that you do to yourself is not self-contained. You are not a little slab of rock. You are a puddle of water. And there are other things in that puddle. And when you drop that rock, no matter how small that rock is, other people will feel your ripples. The people who are close to you will feel the ripples of this behavior. And, I like to say to myself, don't be a douchebag. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Don't be a bag of D.
Well, I like that you've put out that that we affect other people because we steal the peace of mind from the people that love us.
Yeah.
And since doing this job, now I'm dealing with families because often, and this may be for your listeners, often it's not the addict themselves who will make the call, who will arrange everything. He'll arrange talking to the FMP. He'll arrange getting the flights. He'll arrange, speaking, getting people, because if they're too shut down, they're simply not capable of organizing stuff. So it's very often I'm dealing with family members, and it brings to the fore to me the damage that I did to my family because I'm thinking, the only person I help was myself.
The only person I'm hurting is me, right? That same selfish thought over and over again.
Yes.
It's my life. I'll do whatever. I'm not doing anything to anybody else.
Totally. And because I'm dealing with families, wow. It's been brought to my fore how much we do affect others, and
we are very connected.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's very well. It's the self-obsession that you spoke to is. And it is a family disease, and but the great thing is, you mentioned about how proud I would be looking at Michael. It's all the people Michael touches.
Yeah,
it's all the people that he'd affected. It's like a ripple effect, the butterfly effect.
Yeah,
You know, if it just goes on and on and on. The amount of people if you can change that dynamic of one addict,
Yeah.
the living hell that they're causing wherever they go,
Wherever they
or
go,
that I
yeah.
used to cause. Yeah, it's a
Mark
real
is a
thing.
he's a karmic billionaire.
There you
Yeah,
go.
right?
Yeah.
His karma bank account's very full.
Very full. It's very interesting also that you had mentioned spirituality being different from religion, as I am not that spiritual of a person, but I do. But even the things that you hold into yourself as beliefs and core functions of who you are, your personal code, that is in and of itself a form of spirituality. You are
Oh, yeah, without
giving
doubt.
yourself up to something higher that you've put yourself to. And there's
Well, I think-
actually. Oh, please continue.
No, I think it's Socrates who said a life unexamined is not worth living.
Yes.
And the spiritual path is to examine one's life. What on earth am I doing this for? Where am I going? What on earth do I believe? You
Right.
don't have to believe in God to answer for those questions about yourself to be answered. And the addiction is a total loss of self.
Yes.
I lost connection with me, let alone anybody else. And
It's akin
and
to
asking
ego
those questions.
death.
Yeah, absolutely. And answering those questions wherever they go will answer who I am. And one of the things you'll hear is about suicide is you're killing the wrong person.
Yes.
You don't even know who you are,
No.
really.
And in a lot
Really.
of cases, it isn't the I want to die part. I found it two very common ones. I want to kill the person I am. And I just want the pain to stop.
Sure.
You don't want
one
to.
thing.
Oh, please continue.
The one thing I always say when it comes to suicide is it is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. Correct. Exactly true. Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you on not being spiritual, D.A.M.I.
Okay, sure.
I found a definition for spirituality that works for me,
Hit it.
and spirituality is a profound awareness of connection with others.
Okay.
Full stop.
All right.
So
You win.
I like
it's
that.
That's good.
That's nice.
That actually goes
That'll
on
do.
to something that I was going to say. While not being spiritual, but I guess I am now. Thank you, Mike. I'm going to rub that in everybody's face now. I'm going to be real smug. The thing that I found is that I'm a game designer, so I like absorb all sorts of weird different ideas and stuff. Like, this might be a good idea. And I learned about that if you take the first 72 cards, the major arcana, they actually tell a story, the Fool's Journey, which is also used in literature as well. It is also similar to the hero's journey. And you get to the Wheel of Fortune. And the Wheel of the Fortune and Strength are two cards that I will always tell people, hey, if you take anything away, take two things. One, when the Fool meets the Wheel of Fortune, he learns that he is connected, whether he wants to be or not, to everything around him. That every action you have will in some way touch someone else. That you can't get out of it. And so it's important the Fool learns to understand and recognize these connections for what they truly are. And the other one is strength. And I love this. The strength is usually shown in the Rider-Waite as a woman with two lions chained, and she's walking them. They are guiding her. And strength is opposite of another card. The Chariot tells us victory must come at all costs. I've learned to view the Chariot as my military friends when they were in the military. All things must... You ride it till the wheels come off. And what strength teaches us is that you don't need to do that. The way the women trained these lions was little bitty successes every day. And the card of strength tells the Fool that every small success that you have is a success. And every large thing that you've ever done ever has been made of these small steps. And it is the small steps that we take, the small victories that we let ourselves feel pride in, these are the building blocks to these great structures we can build emotionally and friendship wise.
I mean, that's kind of similar to AA's and NA's 12-step program, where it's these little tiny steps will help you achieve the greater good.
So we have someone in chat who is slowly writing out their share, but they want to share their moment of clarity. So I'm going to read that out to honor their willingness to be open with us. So this is Happy 1178. He's a newer member of the community. He was in the, how do I pronounce 0311? He was in infantry in the Marine Corps and was a point man, 3rd squad leader for 2nd and 8th. He got injured in Afghanistan by a head-level IED on a tripwire when he was breaching a door, and it gave him a traumatic brain injury that causes seizures. He still suffers from them. He knew that God didn't want to do this. What we do to ourselves. Sorry, we have Nightbot. He also spent 9 months in Portsmouth Naval, wounded warrior, East, relearning how to walk. And as that comes up, I will continue to read it. Again, Happy, thank you for sharing with us. You can stop at any time, but if you want to let it all go, we're here to listen. And we're all here to honor each other's moments of clarity. They're big. They're a big moment in all of our lives. Your moment of clarity was realizing your family was affected. Hi, Querioki, another member of our community, a good friend of mine. Your moment of clarity was realizing that Happy is a big thing. Can we talk about that for a moment? About family? And okay.
I mean, it's the ripples of our own effects.
It's the ripples of our own effects. And it doesn't have to be the family that you were born with. Some people hate that family, and that's fine. I'm not going to tell you hug your mother if something really bad happened. I am going to say that sometimes our friends and our connections we choose are our families. They are as blood to us. And it is those people, the people you care about, the people who you would walk through fire for. Seeing those people affected can be like a bullet to the heart sometimes. Just agonizing to see what's happened. I know in my self-destructive behaviors, when I realized that I was hiding it, it was still slipping through, and I was hurting people through hurting myself. And that, as someone with a mental illness, as someone who also knows addicts, that is something that you know often you don't realize you're doing. Happy then says his wife walked into me when I killed myself, and they brought him back. But it's hard to know my wife with kids would have to do this misery of life without him. I'm glad they brought you back, Happy. That is a solid, good job, medical science. So Happy almost crossed that bridge. He got as close as any of us ever will.
That's what I mentioned, is just like, I know that feeling. That's what was like my moment of clarity, which was after I woke up. Mm-hmm. After they had to, pump my stomach, charcoal, and then like everything
That's
else to
so
get
fucking
out.
rough too. Getting charcoal, that shit's harsh.
Well, I was unconscious the entire time.
Good.
Like,
my
gone.
mom's a rehab nurse, so I get to hear all of these awful stories. You've clinically died 3 times. Stop doing that.
Yeah, have you ever just tried?
Have you ever just tried not being clinically dead? Give it a shot. You'll like it. Knit instead.
But no, it's one of those. We talked about it earlier. It's a ripple effect when it comes to, addiction recovery, and realizing that we do have a problem. With anything we do, there will always be an effect. It's funny enough within science. It's just that the cause and effect. I'm trying to remember who came up with that. But it's true with all decisions that we make. They don't just affect us, whether we think it does or not. It affects everyone around us, whether it is good or bad.
Yeah. Others will feel your happiness, and others will exalt your happiness and feel your suffering. It doesn't matter if you try and be in an echo chamber, it will always resonate outwards, especially to the people that you care about, And also, it's just not great. Even to the general populace, especially if you're a mean drunk, or have very self-destructive tendencies. And I think we've all kind of struggled mental illness-wise or addiction-wise. And one of the things that, and I'm going to make a assumption, Mark, and I want you to challenge me if I'm wrong or clarify if I'm right, that addiction robs us of ourselves.
Oh, totally. Robs you of everything, including yourself.
Yeah. That it takes away...
Everything.
Yeah. It takes away the parts of us that are most precious.
No, everything. Take away everything you love.
It's not...
Yeah.
And so I think that also the fact that that you guys have come out the other end and are able to put love and hope back into the world, I wanted to take a moment to tell you that I find that very noble.
Thank you. But we also have no choice, right, Mike?
Yeah.
It's our way out.
If you can do something, you should do something. And I can
Absolutely.
only understand it from the mental illness. I have luckily not
Very
been...
similar.
Yeah.
I mean, addiction is a mental illness,
And I've...
at its core. Sorry to interrupt. At
No,
its
please
core,
do.
it's a obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
And
You're not wrong.
That we will do it. It will just about that thing, about not feeling the way we feel, about changing how we feel obsessively and compulsively, and we'll go to the ends of the earth to do it. That's what it is. It's really what it is. And just fuck everything that gets in the way of that, including our families, our loved ones, our work, our self-esteem, our everything. We'll put everything on the line for it. Pretty horrific. But the beauty is that getting out of it, once you put your hand up, I need help. I'm going to listen. I'm surrendering to what you've got to say. It's actually quite easy. It's impossible to do by yourself. Because it's a mental illness, it's a stacked deck.
Yes.
It's a stacked deck.
Yes,
You're going to
it
lose
is.
every single time. But if somebody holds your hand and says, this way, it's easy.
It becomes
easy.
easier. Yeah.
It is actually remarkably easy, but it's just that it's the we, not the I. I can't do it. We can.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's something that actually my therapist had brought up, that if I tried to combat my illness on my own and I lost every time. Yeah. Because you don't have the ability, you can't see what you don't know. You know what I mean? It's like trying to describe a color to somebody who's never seen it.
And it's a stacked deck against you.
And it's absolutely a stacked deck against you. There's nothing that you can do to... The house will always win, and the house is a bastard. That's like one thing that you learn. Right. And you're right. It's only once you are able to say, I need help, you would be surprised how many people there are that will help you. That will say, I hear you. And I think that's one of the first things we want, is we want someone to hear.
I think that there's a beautiful Asian saying, I think it's Japanese or Chinese maybe, I'm not sure. But when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
That's, I've heard that. I love that one. Yeah. That's a good one.
Michael, that's true, right? It's 100% true.
100% true. I got this coin from a veteran buddy of mine in recovery. He gave this to me. See that? SB.
Yeah.
he's like, you take the me and you turn it into a we, you know? And uh, on the backside, it says another chance to get it. Oh, you can see that, another chance to get it right. So
Excellent.
that's
That
what we
is
do.
that
That's
is
what we're doing
wonderful.
here in this community, Dammy. You know, it's a we thing. You
Yeah.
know, we can't do this thing alone. And once I raise my hand and I plug in, I realize I never have to walk alone again.
Yeah, I agree as well. Is one thing that you're taught a lot in mental illness, especially because that is its own. I am in my own form of recovery as well. Day by day, getting better and better. You know, recovery is a wave, not a line. I still have my slip ups. You know, because borderline behaviors are insidious. They sneak into the brain, and then bang, you're in it again, and gotta kind of get yourself through the trenches, and then come out the other side. And that's something that I was taught is you will always, it will be there, but it doesn't have to rule you. And it's I think it's the same thing with addiction. It doesn't have to rule you. The goal is learning control. I think, at least. Again, I can only go from one angle, not the other, but huge in some maladies like bipolar and borderline is having an accountability buddy. And being like, okay, if something goes wrong, I have my accountability buddy. You know, because at the bare minimum, when you're at the very bottom, and it still happens, I think, to everybody, sometimes the only thing you've got is, well, I don't want to disappoint so and so. And if that's what you've got at that moment, I've been there. I grasp onto that, and I build up from there. I haven't disappointed my support system. I can work from, okay, I don't want to disappoint myself. I don't want to let go of the things that I've earned back. I don't want to let go of me. And you kind of crawl yourself out of that hole again. I think it's all about getting out of there. And sometimes you slip. You'll slip. Your foot will get caught. But it's about getting out of it and staying out of it, I think. That's at least my philosophy.
For me, once the malady has been explained to the alcoholic or addict, once they know what the deal is, it's a mental health. You know, it's you know that there's no cure. There's certainly treatment, but there's no cure, and that there is a way out of this. Then I think what when they get that, when you're in the madness, you don't know.
No.
You're in the madness. You're going to do whatever you're going to do.
Absolutely.
But once somebody's pulled you aside and shown you that there is actually a way out of this shit, that there really is a way out of this, but you're going to have to do certain things. You're going to blah, blah, blah. You've got to do this, that, and the other. But there is a way out. I think that person is then morally responsible to do something about it. They get sort of a pass for all the shit they did in the madness because they didn't know any better. But once you know, you absolutely know that there is a way out of this, then I think you're morally obliged to do something about it.
I agree.
Because of the points you mentioned, which is, you know, the way that we fuck up our family, the people we love, the people we contact, whether it's work or romantic or whatever, we'll bring the whole house down. And I think if you are convinced that there's a way out of this, then you've absolutely got to take it. You can't say, oh well, no, I'm gonna go back to that.
I'm gonna go back to the bottle. No, thank you. So there's something that in my therapy office that we work with that I want to pass by you guys, and it's called naming the dragon. Once you name it, you know it. And once you know it, you know it can be defeated. Once you put a name to it, you can gain power over it.
And you're morally obliged to do something about it.
I agree. And at that point, you are obliged to do something because you know you can take steps.
Yeah. Yeah.
I try not to fault people for things they don't know. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And that's a big one in addiction and illness as well. Like you had said, the wood's for the trees. You can't see it. It's you're in it and you don't
you don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah.
John's your
Another thing
philosopher.
about
Oh, Mike, hit it.
knowing about it,
Yeah.
once I got the solution, once I was informed about it, that there's a way out, and I was shown that path. Um, this is in the past, and then I would relapse. It's never the same again.
Yeah.
It just gets worse.
Yeah.
You know, I can no longer I no longer enjoyed drinking alcohol and using drugs. It was very short lived because I knew there was a solution. You know, when I was in the madness before that, I really didn't understand it. I had no you know I had nothing to um, yeah, I had no point of contact or reference for. Once I knew about the solution and I actually was engaged in the solution, when I went back out, it was a miserable experience and a miserable feeling. And so, and that's when I had to make the decision, like, am I going to continue on this hamster wheel of hell and just continually, that's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the
Yeah.
same thing over and over and expecting different results. I had to make that shift. I had to make that change.
So we're going to talk about another really uncomfortable thing that happens. It's something that can occur sometimes. We're going to talk about relapse because that's a harsh one. That's the big R. How do you? Because you guys do aftercare, which is great. 32 months of aftercare. That's great. What do you do in the situation of a relapse?
Well, they're normally full of guilt and remorse. I'm just happy that they put their hand up and come back to me and said I slipped,
Yeah.
rather than keeping it under the radar, lying about it, maybe losing them and being so ashamed that they don't come back to the fold, right? So I'm always, well, you needed a convincer, did you? You
Yeah.
had to be convinced.
This is true.
And the other thing is, shock, horror, newsflash, we're alcoholics and addicts. What do alcoholics and addicts do? They use. So, yes, it's not cool and you've got to come back. But please don't flog yourself to death that you did this, because they are full of guilt and remorse and shame. And we're not about guilt, remorse, and shame, And it's say, look, yeah, that's really not cool. But hey, you're an addict. What do you expect?
Exactly.
And
It's going to happen.
Are you convinced now? You needed a convincer that you're a fucking alcoholic and addict. Do you get it? This is not a choice for you. You've got to be doing these things. If you do these things, you won't use. Now, are we going to get back to doing these things and carry on? So I don't want to make it, they feel ashamed and guilty as it is without pouring it on top,
Yeah.
So somewhere between is how I pitch it. I pitched it with you, Michael, didn't I? You slipped
A few times.
And it's
I was the king of relapse. I could write an encyclopedia on it. So, and it's a lot. And that's the thing. And you talked about it before, D.A.M.I, about pride and ego, and it's difficult when I'm in a community of wellness and then I have a slip.
yeah.
And I've made these connections with all these people, and then I've got to admit that I did relapse, I did slip,
Yeah.
and but there's something very powerful about that, about being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, because this whole thing that we do is a program of honesty, and it took a long time for me, and it's a daily thing. Like and Mark will tell you this. Mark's got over 30 years of continued sobriety. He's just as close to the next drink as I am with 2 years. So there's no, it doesn't mean like because he's got 30 years, all of a sudden he's cured or something. No, it's not that. But, we know that we just have these things that we have to do on a daily basis that are really quite simple, that, that we do on a daily basis. And so, like the relapse is very common. It's more common than not in the community, and a lot of many people, when they get post treatment, they find, and I'm speaking for myself. I had found before this last time, difficulty, and it's just like getting out of military service. It's like now I'm back in, the world, so to speak, and I'm having to adjust and learn how to be comfortable in my own skin without putting, these chemicals in these mind and mood altering substances in my body to change me. And so, it is difficult and it takes a lot of time. And again, that's why we have the community to go to and we plug in with people because we can share our experience and strength and hope with others.
What is it I heard once? One drink is too many and also never enough.
A thousand's never enough.
Yeah, exactly. That like always stuck with me. That kind of idea. It's you guys are doing really great work, and I love that you're capable. People who've gone through the program are capable of taking what they've learned and bringing it back. There's no mystic cure here. This is based in reality and care and a genuine desire to see people want to be healthy and that's so wonderful and that's so noble. Johns, you got any questions for these gentlemen?
We've covered actually
I was
quite a
gonna
bit.
say we've like covered everything.
Yeah. No, I am. I'm happy that your program exists.
Me too.
Thank you.
I think you guys.
You know,
have done
if
wonderful stuff.
if anybody's listening and they just
oh,
want to get in
trust me,
contact
they are.
they can just look up Miracles Asia and you'll get my number there and I'll talk to you if anybody needs help because I'll just tell you what to do and it doesn't necessarily mean to come to Miracles Asia because I have two hats. One hat is the rehab hat, the other hat is my recovery hat. And there is help everywhere in the States. A shout out here for Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous is live and well all over the States. And it's a beautiful program. It's totally free. It's there. They will connect. You will get, you will get love. You will get understood. People come to rehab, to start them off, to find a place where they need to stop, to look at the underlying mental illness about actually defining what it is and getting treatment around that, right? But you don't necessarily have to come to a residential rehab. And plus there are great rehabs in the States. But if anybody just wants to phone me, you can phone me or Michael. We'll put you on the path, not necessarily to Miracles Asia, but put you to path for help in the States and in your area because it's everywhere in the States. It really is everywhere. It's loving, kind, and for free, and we'll just help you put you in that right direction, right, Mike?
Absolutely.
But if you're a vet and you've got a couple programs under your belt, Paradise is a great place to get help. Happy. You can contact people in the Stack Up Discord, or as Mike said, I just plugged Miracles of Asia. Give them a call. See what happens. These are very busy men. We've hit the 2-hour and 20-minute mark. After this, we'd just be doing mental health jazz. So they've got shit they got to do. But I want to thank you so much for being here, for talking to people, for being open and honest. And when I'd ask, what do we talk about? What do we don't? And I was told they'll talk about anything. The fact that you guys went everywhere was just so wonderful. Your openness, your honesty, your care, your concern, it radiates from you, and you are putting so much good into the world. I appreciate you so much. So we're going to leave it here.
Thanks for the kind words.
Oh,
thank you.
You guys are doing amazing. With Mark and Mike, then keep your butts in the seats. And actually, we're going to send you over to Steve. Fuck it. We're going to send you over to our founder. That fucking nerd. But defending... Oh, so Steve, you'll like this one, I think. Steve actually has on his channel where I'm sending everybody over. Shanghai 6 is who he is in the Stack Up Discord. Steve has probably the best slogan I've ever seen, which is "Happy Vets Don't Kill Themselves." And I feel like there's something to be said for that in addiction as well. Maybe not happy addicts don't kill themselves, but I can definitely see that people with purpose find a way, I guess is a good way to say it. So we're going to go ahead, fire up the raid machine. I want to thank you guys so much for being here, being attentive, listening to these two fine gentlemen. I want to thank Miracles Asia again for coming in, giving their time, even though it's butt crack early for poor Mark. But thank you again so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
remember the big three, all right, guys? Before I send you off, be kind to animals, be kind to others, but most importantly, be kind to yourself. And I'll see you in the next one.